You want to make sure you're adequately prepared on everything. They say, anxiety is the price you pay for an unprepared mind and mouth. After we do the 3 foundational days, we're looking back at the last 90 days and we're like, hey, how did we do on, we set company rocks, individual rocks. How did we do on those? Because we said these are the most important things. Kind of intro to EOS with the leadership team. It's important that everyone's there because the last thing that a company needs is for the visionary typically, or the owner saying, hey, I read this book and we're going to start doing this. You read a book and you're like, oh, you're all like shiny object. Let's start doing this. It is fun, looking back and connecting the dots and realizing that all the experience that I got as a commercial banker, sitting in loan committees, looking at a bunch of deals, seeing how business works, was a really great setup for what I do today.
Welcome to The Show Goes On. This is a podcast about the people who keep the businesses running behind the scenes. My name is Aamir Noorani, and today I'm joined by Kevin Taylor. Kevin, great to have you today.
It's a pleasure. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick bio on Kevin. Kevin is a seasoned leadership coach with over 25 years of experience as a commercial banker, entrepreneur, and advisor to business owners. He specializes in helping leadership teams of privately held companies break through growth ceilings by implementing EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. His work focuses on aligning vision, driving execution, and building healthy, cohesive teams. His passion is guiding leaders to not only grow their businesses, but also create lives where they do what they want to love with people that they love while making a lasting impact. And then outside of banking and EOS, Kevin and his wife also own and manage over 24 units of real estates. And along the way, there's been some forays into the restaurant world, which I would love to get into later on. But first of all, Kevin, when people ask what you do nowadays, how do you usually answer that?
Yeah, it depends on who's asking. I tell them, I'm a business coach is what I say. And hopefully it piques a little bit of interest. And if it does, I tell them, I help, companies get more of what they want from their business. When they ask, what is it that I do? Or if they ask what EOS is, or Entrepreneurial Operating System, I typically lead with, when they say, well, what does EOS stand for? And I realize people think in pictures. So when I used to hear operating system, I thought it was a software. And so when I'm like, what's entrepreneurial operating software? And I say, before you even ask, it's entrepreneurial operating system. See how I did it. And before you even ask, it's not a software. It's a process for managing human energy inside your business. And that, if it's anyone that's on a leadership team or a business owner, that usually piques some interest. And then, I'll walk them through what that means when we say, we talk about our vision, traction, and healthies, vision, of course, getting everyone 100% on the same page with where you're going, how you're going to get there. The traction part is just really installing the discipline and accountability. Make sure everyone's executing on that vision, and the healthy is just making the leadership team a more healthy, cohesive bunch of people who enjoy spending time together, because, even the best leadership teams are sometimes unhealthy.
Yeah. You said something really key there. You said a process for managing human energy. And I think with every business owner, where we always get tripped up is managing the humans, our people, our staff, and how do we get them aligned and on the same page? I know a lot of it starts with vision, but in your experience, what have you seen with leaders who are trying to get buy-in from their people on EOS and a new system?
Yeah, well, it starts with the leadership team. And, when we do our first kind of intro to EOS with the leadership team, it's important that everyone's there because the last thing that a company needs is for the visionary typically, or the owner saying, hey, I read this book and we're going to start doing this. Because if they're a typical visionary like I am, you read a book and you're like, oh, you're all like shiny object. Let's start doing this. Yeah. And so, the key is that I tell them, hey, let's get the whole leadership team together, and I do a free 90-minute workshop, and I walk through, 4 different steps during that workshop. I'll give a little bit of history of EOS, why it was formed, why it was created, a little bit about my background. Then I'll ask some questions. Step 2 is asking some questions on them, where they've been, where they are now, where they're going. And then I spend the majority of that meeting just walking them through what 100% strong looks like in all of the 6 key components. And then if that all sounds good, I walk them through the process that we take our clients through, from that initial first free meeting through, the whole EOS process where they're becoming a master of the foundational tools of EOS. After that, I'm running their quarterlies and their annuals, and I'm introducing a new EOS tool until they are able to run it without the help of an implementer. And so ideally, there comes a time when teams, we call it, graduate from the process. But quite frankly, some teams don't. I mean, even though they can do it by themselves, they're like, hey, I don't want to run the quarterly. I don't want to run the annual. We'll just keep you along and do that. So it's really key to, one, get the leadership team on board on doing that. And then what we find is as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the company. And so hopefully the rest of the employees see the change in that leadership team, and they either get on the bus or leave.
Yeah, I agree. If you get the leadership team on board, it always starts at the top, right? So if you can get alignment at the top, that filters down. So I totally agree with that. Yeah. But how did this all start for you? Like, how did you get into the EOS world? Where did your career begin? I'm curious in all that.
Yeah, it started over a decade ago. This was, mentioned, part of my background was in commercial banking. Actually, the majority of my working life, over 25 years in commercial banking. And, most recently, I was a senior vice president, co-founder of a bank here in Dallas. And about 5 years into that journey is when I was given a copy of the book Traction. Mm-hmm. And with like a lot of the books I get, it's set on my bookshelf for a couple of months before I even cracked it open. But after, opening it, reading kind of like the first 10 pages of it, I was like, wow, this is really good. Gave a copy to our CEO who read it, loved it. And we started implementing the tools of EOS inside our company. And so it had a lot to do, with our growth on there. I think, just even the small things. I mean, like the tool, I think that gets the most, I would say, resistance at first, but then they really like it is that level 10 meeting. Because one, for the idea of someone who doesn't already have enough time, they're already, working 80, 100 hours a week. And then you tell them, oh, hey, by the way, part of this process is we're going to add a 90-minute meeting every week inside your company. They're like, that's the last thing I need. But what they find is that it's actually a very productive meeting, and it saves them time in the long run. So, but yeah, adding those tools, and that was how I got introduced to it. And then really along the lines where we met was inside the EO Dallas framework. So was a sponsor of EO Dallas for about 8 years. And during that process, I found out I just had a lot more in common, enjoyed hanging out with a lot of the entrepreneurs than I did a lot of my banking colleagues. And so,
yeah,
it was funny because, I mean, you and I have hung out at these EO events, and I was like, wow, man, these are my people. Like, these are the ones that I feel like I resonate with. And actually, it was inside that network. A lot of them would say things like, you don't seem like a banker. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I used to take offense to that. And then until I realized what they were saying was like, no, like, you're more like us. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's a good thing. And
honestly, I always saw you at these events, and I just thought you were a member. And like, I feel like those are the best sponsors and SAPs that they just send in. But like, you were hanging out, and the whole time I thought you were a member. And then,
it was a lot of fun. And so, there came a time where, and I used to joke around about this too, because I used to say, look, I'm probably a terrible employee because, there's things that they're like, oh, we're going to do things this way. And I was like, well, I think I can do a little different, or, oh, I'm going to change it up and do things. And so, but that was really just my innovation, like, coming out on there. Since then I've taken Lencioni's, Working Genius. And I know my 9 geniuses are innovation and galvanizing. And so I didn't know that back then. And so, when the time came for me to look to do something different, and after a decade of, handing out those traction books, referring my friends, clients, prospects to, other implementers, I decided to take the entrepreneurial leap and become one myself. So
that's cool.
That's what I'm doing now. And it is fun, looking back and connecting the dots and realizing that all the experience that I got as a commercial banker, sitting in loan committees, looking at a bunch of deals, seeing how business works, was a really great setup for what I do today.
How so? I'm curious.
Well, you see a lot of the things that you just wouldn't see if you were, someone that's in the trenches. You get to talk to, inside loan committee. You're like, well, here are some of the things that could go wrong on this. And then, that comes up. And also there's a lot of different industries. I just didn't even think that there was an industry out there for something like this. I mean, industries, I'm trying to think of some really fun ones that we had. There's one that just made a business just on leasing those big shipping containers, but how all of that worked, the pickup, the delivery, the logistics, that was the fun one to look at. There were just several of them. There was just a lot of cool businesses to look at.
Yeah, I feel like in banking and then as well as EOS, you probably get exposure to so many different types of businesses.
Yeah.
Just like, I guess for lack of a better word, like random. Like you would never think about that sort of business doing something or that even exists, but there's something for everything, right?
Yeah. And the experience to see, how the underwriting process works, what's important for the banks, on the lending side. And, we talk about, the SWOT analysis when you're looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Mm-hmm. Just sitting in loan committee when, I'm walking companies through and they're talking through issues. And sometimes it's good if I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about an industry, because I'm kind of like that guy sitting outside the jar. It's like a lot easier to read the label from outside the jar. And so it's like, have you ever thought about this? And they're like, I don't know. How come we've never thought about that? Mm-hmm. But that's, my role when I'm in a session is really more of a teacher and facilitator and coach, not a consultant. But it just, sometimes that just does come out when I hear things. I'm like, let's think about it a different way.
In these loan committees, I'm curious, like, do they really go through like a SWOT analysis of each business before they're deciding to put them forward?
Not every time. Some of the larger deals, and we are asking the questions of, hey, what could go wrong in this? Like there was a customer, I won't say the name because it's a well-known, it's a bigger company, but there was a client of ours that relied a lot on automatic debits from clients, and if they canceled a membership, they could keep something on the books for like a very low fee. Well, this particular client, there was a lot of revenue that came from those automatic debits, even if it's a small fee. And there was a security hack. There was a breach in one of the credit cards. And so when all that revenue went away, when members had to reload their credit cards back in, they're just like, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, wow.
And so the loss of revenue on all those small $5-10 monthly charges just to keep their thing going, because people didn't want to renew on this, or they just left it on there even though they weren't using it. But once it was canceled, they're like, well, I'm not going to enter my credit card information in. Yeah. That was a huge revenue loss. And that's something that sometimes you just don't think about. It's like, what's the threat here? Well, the threat could be, there's we get hacked and there's some people have to put in their credit card information again and they don't do it. That just you don't think about that on a daily basis.
Yeah, you would never think about that. Like, it's funny. I feel like when my brother and I are talking through business, I'll talk about, what could go wrong? And he's generally really good about, hey, what could go right in this situation? And so I feel like you need those two, like the accelerator and also the brake, to be able to push forward, but also like pull back and say, we should weigh a lot of the risk too of this.
Yeah. And so one of the other implementers inside our community said this, and I stole it from them. But you're exactly right. They said, the visionaries, the CE yes, and the integrators, the CE no. And it's, you got to have both on that. And, but that's true. It is, a lot of people are asking, hey, what could go wrong? But you do need to be asking that question. Well, hey, let's think about what could go right.
Yeah.
That's typically the stance I take is, I'm too wired like a visionary. It's like, I don't think about that. I think about what could go right. Optimistic all the way.
Yeah, for sure. I can tell. I feel like you're generally a very optimistic person. Can you go back into that Lencioni? Is that how you pronounce his name? Patrick
Lencioni. Yeah. So he tells a lot. Like a lot of his books are written in. I think maybe all of them are written in like a fable version.
Yeah.
But I was actually working with a client. And inside EOS, the assessment that we have our clients take is the Colby. And so the Colby tells you a couple of different things. I know I'm a 4-3-8-4. So my high number, that 8's a quick start. So, I jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down. But the first number, the 4 is fact finder. I'm not a high fact finder. I'm just like, give me the high level overview. But what's funny is when I presented that to one of my clients, they're like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Lencioni's Working Genius?" I was like, "I know Lencioni, but I haven't heard of the Working Genius report." And this particular individual was like, he was certified to give the assessments. He's like, "Let me give you the assessment. Let me know what you think." And so I took the assessment. I love taking the assessment, so I took it and found out that my geniuses were innovation and galvanizing. So I love to innovate. I like to create things, and I can rally people behind an idea, like really good at motivating. My frustrations are tenacity and enablement. And so, like, getting the thing all the way across the finish line, finishing the things. Like, I love to start a lot of projects, but ask me how many I finish. And so, but that was really helpful in hiring the practice manager I have. Actually, I got lucky on that because she didn't take this until after she was working with me. But one of her geniuses is tenacity, one of my frustrations. And so we complement each other really well on doing that. And so that's who introduced me to it. And then after I took that assessment, I actually bought Lencioni's book, Patrick Lencioni, that's I think it's called The Working Genius. And it starts off through, as a fable story first, and then it does a deep dive into each of the 6 geniuses and what they mean and what the frustrations are and the competencies and all that stuff. So
that's so cool. I've never heard of this assessment or test from him. I mean, we're big on Culture Index. That's what our company takes.
Yeah, Culture Index is awesome. Yeah.
What's your Culture Index? I'm curious.
I'm a debater, which sounds terrible. I don't like to argue. It's like, I'm just curious. So I don't know who your person is, but Jason Williford in Dallas was the person who, that's the person I'd lean on all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't like that name, debater. It just sounds like I like to argue. And he goes, yeah, it's probably not the best name, but it's actually really good. It's actually a really good profile. What is your Culture Index?
I'm a philosopher, and like philosophers are notorious for whenever you said like to start a lot of things, but maybe not them. I think the main thing with the philosopher is when they're all in on something, they go all in. If not, you really can't force them to do otherwise. Like, so they're very they'll just kind of go at their own pace.
Huh. I have some of those tendencies.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah. It's like I probably have some of those tendencies too. So
yeah, maybe it's the low D. I think debaters have a low D, and same with philosophers, where they're okay with the lack of structure and they don't always see a need to conform, and definitely do pace. Our guy's Mark Boland. Shout out Mark. He's awesome. We love Mark.
Awesome. That's good. Yeah, I love Culture Index. I've taken all of it. Yeah, the Culture Index, Predictive Index, the Myers-Briggs, all that stuff. So
yeah, but I really got to check out this Working Genius thing. You said innovation and galvanizing. That's your 2 things, right?
Yeah, that's my genius, and my frustrations are tenacity and enablement. And it's I think it's like $25 online. It's really inexpensive to take. So
I got to check it out. So how does innovation and galvanizing show up in your work that you do now?
Well, I was talking about kind of the Kolbe index when we roll that out. There's a certain, because we're not certified, we're EOS implementers, so we're not certified Kolbe people. Well, some of the implementers are, but I'm not. And so, when we have our team take that assessment, we kind of just, read to them what those numbers mean and how to do this. But I thought it'd be more fun to get those numbers, put them on one of the tents, the folded tents that you put in front of them, so they can see on their side and everyone else can see on the other side what their Kolbe number was. And by the time we roll that out, we've already done the accountability chart. So we know all the functions, the roles, responsibilities, all that stuff in there. And so I said, I think what it would be fun is to, throw the accountability chart, their Kolbe, and if they've taken any other assessments like a Culture Index, Predictive Index, or any of that stuff, I asked them to give that stuff to me. And I love throwing it into like chat GPT and then asking for it to, hey, where are the gaps? Where do you see the gaps? Where are the things that are, what do you see in here? And there's a prompt that I have that I put into that. And it is so much fun. One, I walk them through the Kolbe. I teach it to them purely. I walk through, hey, here's what the numbers mean, and I actually take it straight from the book. And then I said, all right, y'all ready for something cool? And so then I read to them kind of in a story version of who they are. And it's funny, when I go around the room, and especially like the visionary and stuff too, and I'm reading that, everyone's like shaking their heads like, oh yeah, that's him, that's him. And that's a lot of fun. And so, yeah, that was, part of the innovation coming out of me of like, hey, this will be something fun to do. And then, just, on the galvanizing part, once, probably like you too, it's like once you believe in something and you go all in, it's like you just want to tell everyone about it and rally the troops on it. So that's probably galvanizing coming out.
Yeah. How did that whole process for EOS start out? Like when you were still in commercial banking, did that thought occur to you then, or was it something that came afterwards? I'm curious how you made that.
It came at the right time. There were some frustrations I was having. I won't get into it, but there's some frustrations that I was having inside the commercial banking and with our leadership team. And so, I was thinking about maybe making a move, talking to another banker, a friend of mine. He worked at another bank, and I was like, things have changed. I'm trying, seeing what my next thing will be. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go work in another bank or not. And he just told me, I love the open and honest part of it. He was just like, Kevin, let me tell you something. He goes, if you wanted to come work with me over at the bank, and I thought he says like, I'd hire you. He didn't say that. He said, I wouldn't hire you. I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? I'd be the best banker you ever had. And he's like, well, yeah, maybe, but you'd be miserable in 6 months because that's not how you're wired. And again, like I said, it's a lot easier to read that label from outside the jar. And so he and I are friends. We've had conversations back and forth on what we're doing outside of the bank, like with our real estate and with the restaurant and all that stuff. And he's the one that put the bug in my ear. He's like, why don't you become an EOS implementer? Like you love the process, you love everything about it. You hand out books to everyone, like all your entrepreneur friends. You're sending referrals out. You know what it is. Why don't you just teach it? It's like, I don't know. And so that conversation happened about 2 weeks before I was like asked, and I was actually asked to leave the bank. And so that happened 2 weeks before. So the timing worked out perfect.
Yeah, it's almost like it was meant to be, right? With everything going on, and easy transition into something that you already believe in and that you galvanize about anyways.
Yeah. So it worked out. It's funny how things work out.
Yeah. And talk me through like your first client, like when that happened and you were leading them through their first session. How did you prepare for that? What was that process like?
Oh man, I don't know if I slept the night before. I was super nervous on that because you want to make sure you're adequately prepared on everything. They say, anxiety is the price you pay for an unprepared mind and mouth. And so, made sure I went through everything and reading and going through it all and practicing all this stuff. And I will say my first client couldn't have asked for a better first client. Such an awesome group of people on the leadership team and super forgiving on stuff too. They're like, well, tell me like, how does this work and it was so much fun. But it's just really just getting in there and knowing, even though, because we've practiced it so much and we've done it, even though we know we may have messed up a little bit on there, they don't know. It's the first time they're hearing this on that. And you can correct it, later on or come back to it if you forgot to say something. And so, and that just gets better with time and more sessions and stuff too. Yeah. It just becomes kind of second nature.
I love that quote that you just gave. Anxiety is the price you pay for an unprepared mind and mouth. Yeah,
I heard that somewhere. I don't know, but yeah, it sticks with me.
I've never heard of that before, but I really like it. I feel like preparation is key to everything.
It is. Yeah.
What's your like, do you have like a routine or some sort of thing that you follow whenever you're preparing for a client? Like, I guess maybe the night before or the morning of?
Yeah. I mean, I get everything prepared. As far as, if we're having it, so I've got a session room. If we're having it in my session room, it's easy because everything's already there. But if it's something where I'm traveling to a client, it's, just preparing, making sure I've got everything that I need to do. Usually, the 3 foundational days we do, the focus day and the vision building days, those are the one where we're doing a lot of the teaching part of it. The quarterlies, it's a lot of coaching because we're really just, after we do the 3 foundational days, we're looking back at the last 90 days and we're like, hey, how did we do on, we set company rocks, individual rocks. How did we do on those? Because we said these most important things. And then we grade the quarter. And then we're like, all right, All right, that's in the past. Past is in the past. Let's just recheck our vision.
Mhm.
We're still on the same page. We walk through the kind of VTO, make sure we're still on the same page, and then we set the rocks, the goals for the next 90 days, and then we're working through the issues list, going through a lot of that. And then I'm teaching a new tool in each of those quarterlies. And so depending on the tool, if it's one I haven't taught in a long time, I may just, review it the night before just to go to rewatch the video, practice it again to make sure I'm not rusty on it. But yeah, once you go through it a couple of times on there, you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah. I mean, you guys probably go through so much training and knowledge material in order to become an EOS coach. So I'm just curious, what was that whole process like when you were first deciding to become an implementer? Because I'm thinking about all those tools, and I know our team is notorious for always skipping those tools. We're like, we'll just skip it.
Yeah.
Which I know is not good. We should be going through that because it really drills into the fundamentals. But you should already have like a good base of all this. So what was that training like to learn all these tools?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, it's. I hope you're coming to our We Run on EOS event on there. I think you said you were. And Leonard,
I think this is a great time to plug that event right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Leonard does an awesome job. So one of the breakouts is with Leonard, and Leonard does a great job explaining kind of what he phrased as like the EOS matrix, how all the tools work together on that. And so his session is really geared towards companies that are either self-implementing or implementing EOS, with an implementer. They kind of know some of the terminology. You will love Leonard's breakout. Jill has a really good one too. Man, she is just a ball of energy. She walks through kind of what I explained earlier of what we call the talk, but it's very similar to our 90-minute, workshop. So that's really geared towards people who are, you've heard about EOS, just not sure, hey, is this something for them? Go to Jill. You will love Jill's breakout. But how all the tools and how we prepare, like the training and stuff that we go to, is all the implementers. One, they've got a pretty stringent screening process now before you become an implementer. Once you pass that, go through that process, then you go to a 3-day workshop, and it is all day, like learning everything. Man, you talk about anxiety on some of this because you're drinking out of just a fire hydrant. I mean, it's just so much stuff coming in. And I'm sure the coaches that are teaching us stuff, their favorite thing is to watch us practice that 90-minute workshop part, because you got to do it all from memory, no notes. And thinking back, that was kind of funny on some of the stuff that, because you're on the third day and you're trying to remember everything and go through it. But it's a lot of stuff, and it's kind of fun though. Yeah.
No, that's cool. But okay, so when is this conference again? Or what?
Yeah, so the conference that we run on EOS, it's our biggest EOS event in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's only once a year. It's on September 22nd at the Statler Hotel in Dallas. And, it starts with, if you want to come to the pre-workshop, Scott Levy with Result Maps is doing a great kind of breakout there, I think that's from 2:30 to 4:30. And I think from, 4:30 to 5:30 is kind of like the networking part. And then from 5:30 to 7, those are the breakout sessions. Leonard's doing one, Jill's doing one. And then after that, we all go downstairs and have fun at happy hour.
Okay. Wow. That sounds awesome. So September 22nd at the Statler Hotel in Dallas.
At the Statler Hotel. And the thing is, I would say reach out to either any of the implementers. Will send you a link to get the tickets, and the tickets are free thanks to our sponsors. Okay. Usually, events like this would probably be a couple $100. They're a full day events. I mean, Leonard has a Great Boss workshop coming up in November that really is awesome. I would say any leadership team or leadership team, people that have direct reports that have not been through a Great Boss workshop would get a huge value out of it. But that's a full day. It's $1,000. And so and that's the kind of the quality that Leonard delivers, and he's delivering a lot of that in his breakout. And Jill's run some of those Great Boss workshops in the past as well. So for this to be a free event, it's a lot of value. Don't let the free deter you, because there is a lot of value there.
Yeah. Can you bring friends who are also not in running EOS and they're just curious about how it works?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would recommend they attend Jill's. Jill will do a fantastic job of explaining, what it looks like to be strong and all the 6 key components, and has just a ton of experience. She's done over 1,000 full day sessions.
Wow.
So ton of experience there.
Yeah, and we've had both Jill and Leonard on the podcast before, so that's awesome. I know they're really good peeps. So.
Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I want to touch in on 2 other things that you do besides EOS, and there's real estate, and then there's also food and restaurants. So you can take your pick when you want to go into first, because I didn't know this about you, and we've met before several times. So I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, I'll jump on the real estate side. So I kind of became an accidental landlord. And this happened, 20 something years ago. And this is, my wife and I, when we first got married, our first purchase was a little 1-bedroom condo, 743 square feet. And so we lived in there for a year before we bought a house. And when we purchased our house, we tried to sell our condo. And at that time, it was hard to sell a condo. So we had friends move in there and paid us rent. I look back at some of the silly stuff that I did back then, and thank goodness they were friends. It was a 1-page, and this was before AI. I mean, we didn't have any chat GPT to write a lease or anything like that. And so it was a 1-page lease agreement between friends. And they actually lived in there for quite a while. And so we bought a house out in Rockwall, suburb of Dallas, and lived out there for 7 years. And then when we looked to move a little bit closer into Dallas before we bought our house in Lakewood, we tried to sell that house in Rockwall. And this was around the 2008 real estate crisis. And so no one was really, we were getting a lot of lowball offers. And I was like, well, this isn't, we don't have to accept these offers. And so the more I kind of sat down, kind of had a clarity break. I didn't know that's what it was back in the day, but I was thinking about it, and I said, hey, if I had the opportunity to buy this house for what we owe on it and lease it, I would. So why don't I just lease it? What's the difference there? Mm-hmm. And so drove to Home Depot, bought a for rent sign and put it in the front yard, and started driving to Dallas. And I was not 5 minutes into my drive before I got a phone call.
Wow.
On that rent. So, and wow. I wasn't prepared, because they were like, yeah, I'm calling about your house for rent. How much is it? And I was like, I did not think that far ahead. So I'll tell you, very accidental. So I told him I'd call him right back. So hung up the phone, turned back around, drove the neighborhood, found another house that was about the same size, called them, and, asked, how big's the house? How much for rent? And they told me. And I said, all right, great, thanks. I hung up, called the other person back and said, here's how much it is. So I think it was the same price. And that was my market research. And and then I finally actually had to actually paid for a service to help me with my rent agreements, because I didn't know the person that was moving in. And so those were our first 2 rental properties. And it also the next part kind of came out of frustration, because that condo that we owned, the HOA just wasn't doing a good, the board wasn't doing a good job managing the property, and I was getting frustrated. And so in the annual meeting, I was asking, I was kind of bringing up all these issues and the frustration of that. And they said, well, why don't you become president of the HOA? I said, well, maybe I will. And so because of that, when that financial crisis happened and everyone was freaking out, I got the list of the delinquencies on people who are behind on the HOAs and stuff too. And I would have to make the decision. They're like, do you want to send it to the attorney? Do you want to foreclose on it? And I'm like, well, yeah. And there was one of them that I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're not responding. Just send it to the attorney, have them deal with it. And so it actually went into foreclosure to the courthouse steps, 0809 timeframe, and no one bought it. Wow. And so it came back to the HOA, and I kid you not, they're like, it was $3,500. That was what was owed.
Oh my God.
And I said, well, what do we do now? And they're like, we sell it. I said, for how much? And like, whatever's owed. I said, so if I write a check for $3,500 so I can buy this condo? And they said, yes. Okay. And so that was our third property. And how
what a steal.
Well, you would think. And then I learned, again, due diligence on this. I learned, if they weren't paying their HOA dues, they also weren't paying their real estate taxes. So got hit with that bill. So I was responsible for that. Didn't know really how to renovate a property. Man, Aamir, if you saw the before and after pictures of this, you're like, that is not the same spot. and so yeah, so that was our third property, and it was really through. So we had three for a little while, and it wasn't until 2019 on a spring break trip where I reread Rich Dad Poor Dad. I always think people should reread books at different times of their lives because it resonates different. I had already read that book, and I didn't really get it the first time I read it. But everyone was talking about it. And I started to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I was listening to some real estate podcasts, and they were like, oh, Rich Dad Poor Dad changed my life. I'm like, really? That wasn't that good. And so I brought the book with me on spring break, reread it, and then it hit me. I was like, oh, now this makes sense. Now that I've actually done a lot of this process, and that's what I told myself, I actually know how to do this. I should probably do more of it. And that was March of 19, April of 19, came back, bought another property, bought another one in November of 19. And then these things were not fitting in the funnel. Like I created this little spreadsheet, nothing was fitting in the funnel until COVID. Mm-hmm. And then, in 2020, when everyone was kind of freaking out and like no one knew what was going to happen, there was a lot of things where real estate was kind of on sale in Dallas. And they were all fitting in my funnel. And so I would wake up every morning and I'm like looking through all these and I was like, wow, that fits, that fits, that fits. And so I just started making offers on these. And that's when we started building up our real estate portfolio. I think we bought 10 or so in 2020.
No way.
And yeah, and they've all doubled right in Dallas, because 2022 would have been the prime time to sell. But they're still up from 2020. And and that's kind of how we started building our real estate portfolio. That's how I got the duplex. That's how and then the restaurant kind of led into the commercial property that we have. We bought into a very small franchise, superfood cafe. So did things like the acai bowls, smoothies, avocado toast, fresh squeezed lemonade, and very cool concept. Really liked the mission of it too. It was so hard to get this thing profitable on it, and made the tough decision to shut that down. And really the restaurant side, I liked it because it was just kind of a fun thing to do. My wife loved it because I would say her passion. She's a CPA by trade; that's her profession. But her passion is like bringing joy to people through food. She loves to do that. And when she was going to SMU, she worked at Kubi's German restaurant. It was like one of her favorite jobs. She loved it. And so she's like, one day I want to own a restaurant. Well, owning a restaurant comes with people issues, right? And so, and that's where the people analyzer actually really helped us. One of the EOS tools, the people analyzer, because it takes all the emotion out of, is this the right person for our culture?
Yeah.
On this, it was right there, black and white. Like, yeah, some of the clients may love her because she remembers their name, but everything else is not working on this.
Like based on the core values and get it, want a capacity to do it.
Yeah. So the core values first, and then if we're looking at accountability chart on do they get it, want it, have capacity to do it. It's like, man, this person is not a fit. And part of the EOS, data, we always say the data component is all about facts, figures, objective information instead of the feelings, emotions, and egos that often, drive decision-making in entrepreneurial companies. And that was one of those things. It was the feeling of like, wow, I don't know. Like this person, especially if you're optimistic and you're kind of a nurturer. My wife's a nurturer. And so she's like, oh, well, they do all these other great things, but the people analyzer, you look at it and you're like, yeah, but they're not a culture fit. And you got to make that tough decision. And, and we experienced that real world on that. And man, once that the person I'm thinking about, once they were gone, it was like, oh man, things were so much better on it. But yeah, that was a tough industry. It's a tough industry, and it was a tough thing to get working. So we made the tough decision. We needed to shut that down. So we shut that down. And now we're landlords on it. So much easier to be a landlord. And the person that took that space is a thriving, cool little place in Bishop Arch. So it's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, man, you've had a lot of interest into real estate. 10 homes in 2020 before everything spiked up. That's no joke. That's incredible timing. I don't know. Did you feel like your experience in commercial banking helped you kind of see what was going on and what the landscape was, or where did that come from?
That may have been part of it, but I will say I started consuming a lot of books, podcasts. That's what I would do. I mean, the greatest thing or is being able to learn while you drive to places. And very, very rarely, the only time I listen to music, I don't even listen to the radio. The only time I listen to music is like when the kids are in the car and they don't want to listen to podcasts. But man, when I'm driving somewhere, like on an appointment and stuff too, I'm listening to things. It's like, oh, that makes sense. This is innovate. And then my innovating genius, which I did not know I had, is coming out. I was like, oh, what if I did this? What if I did this? And oh, this has changed. And one of the hacks that I do is, when you upgrade to get like an iPhone, you can either trade your phone in or keep it.
Yeah.
Well, I've kept some of my old phones, and I keep one in my truck. And when I'm listening to a podcast and I have a great idea, I just go to the video on my other phone and say, all right, don't forget to do this. And so that's like my recorder on my other phone, or if I'm listening to a podcast that I don't want to regurgitate the whole thing.
Yeah.
I said, all right, you're listening to this podcast, this episode at the 25-minute mark. Here it is. Listen to it again later. And I hit play. And so it records it and then come back to it later. So
you just record yourself doing that from an old iPhone you're not using right now.
Yeah. That's my note taker when I'm driving.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I had never heard of that process. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just, I'm always trying to, like, how can I make this, one easy for me to remember? And that's just the best way to do it. Because I know the biggest lie I tell myself is I will remember that, because I won't. And so I have to capture it somehow. And the best way for me to do that while I'm driving is just to hit a quick video and record it.
I love that. And you guys have a food truck now too? Is that what you were saying?
We do. This is to satisfy my wife's need of bringing joy to people through food and not having a full scale restaurant with 20 employees. But yes, it's a fun food truck. This kind of came through these little pop-ups that we did when we owned the restaurant. My wife is made friends with someone who owned a food truck. They did New Zealand style real fruit ice cream, and stayed in contact with them. And when we were looking to wind down the restaurant and look for something else, she had reached out to them. I think on just wanted to see if they were going to the same event she was going to go to as the pop-up. And she's just like, oh no, we're actually thinking about selling our food truck. And my wife's like, wait a minute, what? And so we ended up buying that from them. And now it's her kind of own creation. So in addition to the real fruit ice cream that she does, she's German heritage. And so, we're recording this in August. And so in about a month from now, she'll be in September in the Addison Oktoberfest with her food truck doing her German food.
Yeah. I was just thinking, that's perfect.
Yeah. So so her, again, I go through all these assessments. I know one of her, what is this one? Giant. She's a nurture creative. So the creative part and creating a lot of these different food concepts, she gets to do that with the food truck. Mm-hmm. And the nurture side is taking care of people through hospitality. That satisfies her nurture creative traits there.
I love that. I'll have to come check that out in Oktoberfest. That's like one of my favorite events in Dallas every year.
Oh yeah. They do a lot of, she loves it. Yeah, we'll have to tell you where she's going to be set up.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to do some quick rapid fire questions. I'm going to ask favorite book, and I know you already mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, but besides that one, what's one of your favorite books that you love reading?
Ooh, there's so many of them. I'll tell you the one I recommend the most is a Napoleon Hill book that a lot of people don't know about, but it's the Outwitting the Devil. Mm-hmm. And so it's Napoleon Hill's interview. Man, it's such a great book. It I love that one. Naval Ravikant, his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, The Wealthy Gardener. I could go on. I mean, those are some of the ones that are really, really great books.
You told me about Outwitting the Devil when we spoke on the phone.
Oh, that's right.
About a month ago, and I bought it after that conversation.
Yeah. Have you started listen? Did you listen to it or?
Yeah. I bought it on Audible. Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's good on both Audible and reading.
Yeah. I did some research into it after you told me about how they like banned it and had to figure out how to get it back up, and very interesting stuff. Yeah. Favorite city besides Dallas?
Favorite city? We're talking U.S. cities or?
Let's do U.S. city. Yeah.
U.S. cities. Probably say Maui. I mean, no, it's not mainland, but Maui's such a fun city to go to. Oh
yeah, Maui's awesome. I went there for the first time a couple of years ago. Kevin, this is crazy. Like after we left, I think 2 days later, the fire started in Hawaii. It
Oh, wow.
was insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. Like Hawaii feels like a dream, specifically Maui.
Yeah, yeah. Maui's one of my favorite. We have family on Oahu in Honolulu. That's the fun one, but that's more touristy. And so Maui would be, yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Nice. Oh, that's good. And then favorite movie.
Favorite movie. Not a huge movie. I mean, I like a lot of the Marvel stuff. If I'm looking at like movies, it's a good one. We do TV show.
Yeah, we can do TV show. Yeah.
I would say Friends. Anytime Friends is on, I'll watch Friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
We did a retreat last week in LA, or a couple weeks ago in LA, and we saw the whole Central Perk thing and everything at Warner Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but man, that show just went on forever. So
Yeah, Friends. That never gets old for me. I could watch that any episode, anytime. Absolutely love that one. I like Suits too, but Friends is probably my all-time favorite.
Suits is cool. I like how it's very formulaic and you know what you're getting yourself into. Like it's great for just turning an episode on and just chilling.
Yeah.
You know? Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining today. Before we sign off, is there anything else that you want to share with everyone?
I'm curious, what's your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast right now? Not mine. That's too narcissistic, right?
No, yeah, we got it. I'm always looking for good podcasts. So sometimes there's some I haven't heard about.
Yeah, My First Million is really good. Have you heard of My First Million?
I have. Yeah.
I really enjoy that podcast, and it's just so funny. Sometimes I like intentionally don't listen to it because I know that my mind will go 1,000 different directions once I start listening to it, and so I have to be very strategic about when I put it on. Otherwise, I know I'll stop working and chase an idea that I hear on there. The shiny object syndrome that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I would say, there's nothing. I would say if depending on when this drops, yeah, if any entrepreneurs out there that want to come to that We Run on EOS event, man, I'm telling you, it's the once a year thing, September 22nd, the Statler. You'll get great value for absolutely nothing. This is our free event. This is our give back to the community. It's a great one. And then for any of y'all that are in the entrepreneurial grind and things aren't going the way it's going, I love the quote. It's like, never regret your past or the path you're on, because you never know the journey it's preparing you for.
I love that.
I've seen it in some of the failures we've had, and looking back at it, it was just a great stepping stone to where we are today.
That's awesome. You really came in with the quotes today. Like you're dropping some bombs right now. I like it.
Oh, well, good. Yeah, I'm glad I can help.
And where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me on there. I think it's the Kevin Taylor on LinkedIn. Very similar to Instagram. I'm not on there as much. But on the EOS Worldwide website, yeah, you can find me there as well as one of the implementers. I'm always there to help. We've got a core value of help first, and so if you have any questions or anything that comes up and you just want to pick my brain on something, feel free to reach out. Happy to do that. Happy to walk through anything.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, Kevin.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Aamir.